Welcome to Economics Today, where we debate current events and issues through the macroeconomic lens. We hope these debates will be edifying as well as entertaining. It is our aim to disagree without being disagreeable, so that our discussion will continue and more thoughtful solutions to modern problems will be discovered. Our teams present two sides of a topic so that you, the viewing audience, will be better informed. The format of these debates will be interactive and adversarial. The pro team, the Keynesians, has the first opportunity to present their strongest arguments in support of the ban. The con team, the classical economists, then present their arguments which oppose government restrictions. Both teams then alternate with question and answers during the rapid-fire round. We finish with 1-minute closing statements by each side. Visuals may be introduced at any point during the presentation. Today's proposal: semi-automatic weapons should be banned for civilian use. The problem: the functionality of the automatic weapon makes it very easy to kill. There is a perception that there is a high rate of mass killings caused by these kinds of guns. This has become increasingly publicized in the media because of the killing sprees just last month of 2 firefighters in Webster, New York, 26 children and teachers in Newtown, Connecticut, and 3 shoppers at a mall in Oregon. There is currently no federal law in place to prohibit purchase of these guns. And now, let's hear from our debate teams as they articulate the strongest arguments in favor of or in opposition to the statement, semi-automatic weapons should be banned for civilian use. First, the Keynesian panel. Why are you in favor of a semi-automatic ban?
Multiple reasons as to why semi-automatic weapons should be banned, and the economic reasons are a big factor. The U.S. has 5% of the population and owns half the firearms in the world. A major role of the government is to protect the people of this nation because many people do not think rationally and are unable to their animal instincts and thus making them irrational decision makers. Making these laws will give the government more power over the people, and that will help the country as a whole. With such a large ban, the government will have to set up some kind of offices to oversee the laws and to make sure gun makers are not slipping through the loopholes in the law like they did during the gun ban in the 1990s. By doing this, they will have to buy land from the individual and pay for the building or renovation of office buildings. Additionally, they will hire employees to work at the offices. Just from this portion of the laws, the government increased spending and helped business. They also help with the unemployment by putting more people to work. In addition to the new offices, there will be more fines for people who violate these laws. This will be a huge source of income for the government, and there will also be an increased amount of prisoners as a result of this law. This will cause an increase in the quantity of prison cells demanded, which will cause the government to build more prisons. Contractors to build the actual building and will employ personnel for the prison, such as corrections officers and nurses.
Thank you, pro side. Now, classical economists, tell us about your opposition to the proposed ban on semi-automatic weapons.
In America, there is a legal gun market. First, 2012, there were over 50,000 retail gun stores. All of them increased GDP, all of them raised tax revenue, and they all paid property taxes, as do the businesses that supply complementary goods to these guns. For example, safe manufacturers and sellers, and ammunition retailers. If government were to interfere, not only will a black market be created, jobs will be lost, tax revenue will be lost, and GDP will go down. The point is that government is attacking the wrong issue. Guns are not the problem. Mental illness is what is plaguing our country, and taking guns out of the right hands will not protect the people, but it will weaken them instead. In fact, it was Adolf Hitler who himself took guns out of the hands of citizens who later wished they had them to protect their rights. Government, by interfering, will only screw things up on a major scale.
But the thing we really need to look at is, what are these semi-automatic weapons being used for? If we look at the In almost every single shooting, semi-automatic weapons were used. In the next graphic, we can also see that the semi-automatics are the choice weapon for these killers. We often wonder how hunters would feel if certain bans were passed and how it would affect them. However, hunters don't like to use semi-automatic weapons because the multiple bullet wounds ruins the meat. Besides target shooting at ranges, the only thing that semi-automatic weapons are good for is mass killings. Banning semi-automatics will greatly reduce mass killings and save lives.
I would just like to make a comment. In that interactive graph where you and who had semi-automatic weapons. Actually, one of them was a sheriff who took a semi-automatic weapon from his office, and when he was off duty, killed around 8 or 9 people in a park. So it's not, like I said, it's not the guns that are the problem. It is the people who are behind.
Look at, the majority of, that was a rare case. The majority of these are not police officers. So we need to look at, what the weapons are actually being used for.
Many of them are also not semi-automatic weapons too.
And we should also understand that the government restricts one market, consumer may move into another market. And when government trying to foreclose one means, and individual will simply shift into another means. It means that the government will easily find a substitute to achieve his goal. 1927, in Best Township, Michigan, Andrew Cohoy set up the major explosion in Besttown Elementary School that killed 38 children and 6 adults. In the end, he's committing suicide by exploding his truck. As we can see here, the semi-automatic weapon is not the only means that kills mass murder. Evil is in the heart, not in the gun.
Protein?
Well, we have some examples of programs that have worked historically. Australia did a buyback after a similar mass shooting that killed 35 people. They raised a tax levy, a one-time 1% tax levy increase that expired after the year, and they were able to buy 600,000 guns to get them off the streets. And in the subsequent 10 years, gun deaths in Australia have decreased by 60%.
This is a rare case. As originally stated by Jean-Baptiste Say, supply creates its own demand, and in certain cases it has been proven that demand will create its own supply. There are many products currently in the United States that are illegal, but are still being traded on underground illegal black markets. A federal ban on these goods will not take them completely out of the hands of people.
Well, civilians aren't allowed to have hand grenades, and we haven't seen a hand grenade problem on the black market, have we?
Well, suppose that the government did take the guns out of the hands of these people. First of all, you said they used a tax levy to raise that money.
Yes.
It would cost millions. It would cost millions of dollars. Probably close to $1 billion.
Well, with the multiplier effect, that you're giving that money right back. You have a gun that's been sitting in your dad's closet for the past 15 years. That's now new money that by raising that tax, it'll be put right back into the economy because you have this gun that's been sitting there. It's now worth money, worth something for you to turn it in. And what are you going to go spend that money on? Maybe you'll go out to a nice dinner. Maybe you'll go on a vacation. Maybe, it's not. And then, again, increasing tax revenue with the multiplier effect.
Right, but that money would probably be better spent on, for example, highways are government ran in our country and they're heavily regulated. However, thousands of more people die in car accidents every day or every year compared to from gun deaths. So maybe we should, increase that tax levy and spend on that.
Well, actually, in African Americans under age 25, for African American males, the highest rate of killing is with guns, not with cars. So I don't know if you're using that as a eugenics.
Are they obtaining those guns legally?
The vast majority of guns are obtained legally. And
in
those that have been used in mass killings
in that specific group, do you know whether or not those guns are being obtained legally? Because I know there are a lot of killings in New York City. However, guns are strictly regulated there. And I would also like to point out that when regulation on guns was increased in the UK and Australia, perhaps the number of mass killings went down. However, armed robbery increased, and a lot of actually home robberies occurred while the citizens were in their homes with their children, and they had nothing to defend themselves with.
Well, there's other ways to mitigate against armed robbery. I mean, you could have a burglar alarm, you could get a couple of dogs. You don't necessarily have to have a semi-automatic weapon, and we're only talking about semi-automatic weapons here. We're not talking about handguns. So you could still potentially have a handgun to protect yourself, just not a semi-automatic gun.
Right. And I'd also actually like to say that you mentioned the car accidents, but you assume that risk when you get into a car, but 6-year-olds shouldn't have to assume the risk of getting shot to death with multiple gunshot wounds when they walk into their elementary
or a bomb
classroom.
Right.
Exactly. But the bombs happen a lot less than being killed with a
Georgia, or I think it was Georgia, an ex-con intruder walked into her home, and she was home alone with her children. And she called her husband, and he told her to get the gun. And while she was hiding with her children, he called 911. And by the time the ex-con had gotten to her, she had opened fire on him.
Was it a semi-automatic?
It could have been. She opened fire several times, said she had a revolver, did not say whether or not it was semi-automatic. But the point is that if she had, sold back her gun to the government, she would have no way to protect herself, and perhaps by the time the cops got there, they would have arrived just in time to take pictures of her dead body. So, and as far as the semi-automatic guns specifically go, as long as a cop can get his hands on that gun, I want to be able to defend myself against a cop who is,
You think you need a semi-automatic to do that, though?
If the cops have semi-automatics, yes.
Very interesting. Trust the discussion will continue long after the debate is over. Shall we go to our concluding remarks, Keynesians?
Well, I wanted to use the example of my own daughter. In Newtown, Connecticut, they had to cancel the Christmas pageant at St. Rose de Lima's parish because so many of the children that were to participate in the pageant were killed in the shootings. So I have a picture of my daughter's Christmas pageant. Most of these children are first and second graders, 6 and 7 years old, and there's about 20 of them on that stage. So I just want you to think for a minute and imagine all those little angels that are on that stage as actual angels and not able to participate. I know as a parent, following the Newtown shootings, it made me sick to my stomach to put my daughter on the school bus. And I think there are steps that we can take to eliminate, not necessarily eliminate, but to mitigate against these mass killings. Nancy Lanza, Adam Lanza's mother, was a legal gun owner. The guns she had were legal, and she was not responsible enough to keep them out of the hands of her mentally ill son. I just don't feel that we can trust the general public to keep these guns out of the hands of teenagers, as in Columbine. Even though the guns are legally bought and sold, they still do manage to get into the wrong hands.
And the con team.
While our hearts are broken for the loss of these children, when it comes to killings, it is not the gun, it is the person behind it. Our stand to not ban semi-automatic weapons will not only help our economy by keeping our GDP increasing with the sale of the guns, but it also keeps jobs intact. The gun makers keep their jobs, which stabilizes unemployment. Also, without a ban, there is no black market for these guns, which will keep illegal activity down. Even if there was a ban, people could always find substitute goods to do horrible things. All in all, if we have a ban, the crowding out effect will occur, where government spending will increase to accommodate the new buildings and salaries needed to make sure this law is followed. Your tax dollars will go to this. So the long-term positive effects on the economy will boost our GDP and make a better country.
Thank you, everyone, for your preparation and participation in earnestly presenting these current debates in economics. Special thanks to the talented team at the Viking Video Technologies who always make the students and quality their priority.